Yes, you're live.
Am I live?
Yes.
YouTube,
Okay.
Facebook.
Let's see if we're live.
Yes, you're live.
Can you see me? How do you know I'm live? How do you know my thing?
I just search with the title name.
So can you hear?
Why is it so slow?
Oh yeah, you hear.
Yeah,
There's
that's-
another
that's-
speaker. So, hey,
Hi. Yeah, that's the one.
Where do we run this?
you're on camera now.
But
Yeah, the lag is normal.
no. It,
It's not
voice
fixed.
lag. Voice lag. Hi. Yeah, that's the one.
No, that go in the other. Go in the other room.
YouTube.
Yeah, Alessio, Bon. No, yeah.
Hello, hello. Test, test. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Un, dos, tres. Yeah. What?
The frame rate is quite low. Maybe that's due to live.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, yeah.
That's because we're not. Next time we do it on Twitch, okay?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I can.
this.
So if I go on my YouTube thing, can I see my people comments?
For that thing, you can just.
Yeah, you can. We can comment. Yeah.
No, the admin side comments, you can see it on. Yeah, this thing.
Oh wow, that's super cool. That is super cool. I didn't know how to do that.
You can just open the comment itself.
Alright, so let's see if we can have the. Okay, so
Yep.
there's no magic to it.
Yep.
There's one thing that you have to. The only thing that you have to worry about is
The mic.
if this goes too high, you lower it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if a bit of yellow is okay, if it's red,
Yeah, yeah.
lower it a bit.
Okay.
The one thing is, this is the live.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one which is
Coming from the
ready to
camera.
go.
Okay.
So what happens is, you choose the scene, and then you do a transition, and then you do a transition.
Okay,
What?
let's
Why
make,
is it blocked?
maybe it won't render live, like while we are adjusting the frame.
What am I showing? Why is showing this? Is this you?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, that is you. Okay, I was like, what the?
So we'll just put it to a next scene altogether. So that's like a video calling scene.
So the thing is, it seems like
Mhm.
I used.
Avin?
Okay, so I think. Oh, you can hear me.
Yeah.
You're on my video, right?
Yeah, 1 second.
So you're on the video. Try to talk.
Yeah.
So I can hear you. Now, who's on my stream? I need to check if this is actually going out on YouTube as well.
Just give me 1 sec. YouTube. Are you streaming?
Yeah.
아니 또 조명을 지어.
Can you see my stream? Do you know my stream? Alex
Yeah,
Bonte?
yeah, I know. But I'm not able to see. Oh yeah, I can see it. Can watch.
Yes.
Can you hear? Okay, what we need to test is we need to test if he talks on Teams, if you can hear him on YouTube.
Can you talk?
Yeah, I can. I just tested it.
No, him. If you talk on Teams, he has to hear on Teams, on YouTube.
You guys can tell me. Hello. You guys can hear me now? Hello.
That doesn't go in there, so I need to add one more.
Doesn't go in the YouTube.
Yeah, that's alright. We're almost there. We're almost there. I don't need so.
This is for the video call, like the video call is also live stream. So it's not coming live. So professional.
Yeah, that's alright. We're almost there. We're almost there. Try. Okay. Yeah, also because this is completely becoming stupid. So, but we can hear them here, so I guess I'll just repeat the question. And for the next time, I think it's good.
Future iteration.
Yeah, I think it's
Future iteration. MVP is done. Both the MVP is done.
But there is a way. Why I can't stream the audio from the desktop? Yeah, okay, alright, please close it, otherwise I'm gonna die. Alright, okay, I think this is good enough. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll give the link, so I just give the link to, okay, just give the link to everybody. Now also the thing about this is that in order for this to actually stream,
Yeah.
wait, it's still working.
Yeah, it still works as long as we put this. Let's also create one more scene and put this in a different scene, and we can make that as a full screen later.
Yeah. Let's call it thing, and then. Webcam. Oh, come on.
You should.
I look like an idiot. Was that at least like...
I gave you to check that.
I thought you were messing with it.
I was getting a second opinion. I thought I'm just being done.
It's called whether or not you can hear it. All right, let's see what happens.
So this thing is running?
So what is missing is, okay, you're looking at the wrong... Test, 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 test. 1, 2, 3. Test, 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 test. Tell me when it changes there. Are you sure your phone is just not? Your phone seems to be stuck.
Yeah, it's not stuck. Technology. This is YouTube. Has he got comments today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one does work. Yes, the comments are enabled. So that one does work. Let me just add it again.
Next time when you like technical difficulties.
Yeah, let's test transition. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Test. When that will change, we will know. We're just waiting for the image to change. I think we have to use Twitch. I think Twitch is better than Twitch. Yeah, I think YouTube, unless you go for a premium account, it's really bad.
Twitch embeds ads using HTML5 into the streams and everyone comes to it.
I'm okay with the ads. Oh,
Yeah,
I think I had. Oh, so I think it's just your phone being really slow.
No, it's working.
We are in camera?
Okay, this is becoming the. Okay. We need to give like free prizes away or something next. Yeah. Okay. All right, then. Okay, cool. Let's go again. Let's try again. Sorry for that. Should I say it again? This is. Hello, this is Alessio, your host for the day. Welcome at Deakin. Here with me today, Vickiola from Ibm, great friend and mentor of a lifetime. Yes, Christian, let you introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm quite excited to be here at Deakin Launchpad. And I've been with IBM for about 10 years, working more around building innovative solutions with cloud and emerging technologies such as blockchain. And I had the pleasure to work with Alessio for about 6 years.
Thank you. Okay, Christian. So Christian is not just a great developer, a great architect, and a great friend. He is also a great person to learn from. He has a very good mentorship skills, extremely good mentorship skills. He has his own ways, I have to say, which may be different from mine. But nonetheless, if today I am where I am, I'm not sure if that's a good thing, it's probably it's probably thanks to him. So Christian, first question, how did you get into software engineering? Why?
So I am a person that it's like to build things, and software engineering allows you to build a lot of things and think about solutions and application without having too much tools that you need. So that's really exciting. You already just need to have a keyboard, programming language, and you're set to go. The sky is the limit. Your imagination about what you can build is just what constrains you. So I find that it's a quite exciting career to take because you have a lot of opportunity, and more importantly, it's very resellable across the world.
Yes, that is very true. So in the last, let's say, 20 years, we have seen the world changing, and in the last 10 years, even more rapidly because of the shift in technologies, AI, blockchain. So as a software engineer, how did you take this? What was your approach? How do you stay on top of all of this?
Yeah, I think in IT is extremely important to have an approach and a culture of continuous learning. You never have to settle yourself about what you know and what you're good at, but you always need to be at the forefront of what is happening in technology, and primarily for two reasons. Reason number one, because new technology comes out because people learn from mistakes, so they help you to get better. And reason number two, because life without learning will be quite boring.
Yes, lifelong learning. Keep that in mind. It's what I try to tell my students as well, which is also about the class doesn't end at 5 p.m. or whenever the class ends. It ends when you want to stop learning. And I guess one of the big takeaways to take from there is the fact that school is the same for everybody. I guess Deakin, as many other universities, has many people graduating every year. 300 people perhaps. I'm not sure. I have no numbers. I'm just making up a number. But I would say maybe 300 people graduate from IT every year. And what I have seen in running my own Launchpad is not a company, but I still need to go through hire. I go through at least 100 CVs every year for internships for people that we hire. And we don't, or at least I don't always see the difference between one person and another. And the one thing that I have seen a lot of people shining on is time management. They all tell me how great their time management skills are. I'm not sure who came up with this, but apparently soft skills are the thing that you should talk about on your CV unless you have something else to talk about.
Yeah, so even if, I guess that all the people here and people that will be joining. Most of you work in the IT area, which is or wants to be a technology professional. And even those the technical skills are important when you're looking for a job, I think you never have to underestimate the importance of being able to deal with people. And the reason for that is we are social animals. We just don't work in isolation. We work together in a group to achieve bigger things. And in my experience, while you can be faced sometimes to some very challenging technology problem or technical problems, the hardest problems to solve are those that relate how you get along with people, how you make a team productive, and how you learn to see things from different perspectives. Because for anything big that we want to do and we want to achieve our life, it's more likely we will need to rely upon others. Either we want or we don't. And the first soft skills, the ability to communicate well, the ability to listen, it's even more important than talking, are really what make a difference. You may, in your life, you may never be in a position, sorry, not never, you may be confronted with a technical problem that it's above your knowledge and your skills, but you will still be required to do something about it. And that is where working together with other people helps. So if I would give an advice to people that are looking for career as a technical professional, I would just say never underestimate how much is important developing also your interpersonal skills and capabilities, dealing with other, understanding others' points of view, and how to make a team of people cooperate and collaborate effectively.
Cool. So, working in a research lab, so both me and Christian used to work in the same lab, Ibm Research Lab in Melbourne. Well, I think Christian was maybe not top 5, but one of the first 5 employees. Yeah. And I think I was maybe just below the 20th. So we really saw the lab grow from 0 to from 0 people to 120 people, and that was something that happened across the years. Now, the one thing that was really cool about being part of a research lab is that you get to work on really cool stuff, and you get to work on, let's say, the Fox, which sounds weird. But is the first of a kind. So, and I guess me and Christian had the opportunity to work on a number of first of a kind, which is exciting, but it's also difficult because you don't have anything to rely on. You don't have past history. You don't have anything. So some of the things that we might have worked on was one of the first blockchain projects around the share KYC, which is people who don't know what KYC is, you will learn when you're in your 30s, is know your customer. It's the process of going into a bank and going anywhere really and give your details. And that was really, we had no previous experience. We had almost no experience in knowing how a bank operates. But yeah, we came up with some really cool ideas. And actually, the one thing that we learned was not to try and change the world, but try to fix very small problems. And this is where I'm probably going to touch on. I think we try to solve really big problems like world peace. And at the end of the day, I think one of the most successful projects that the Ibm Research Lab has worked on lately is the actual Lagon Project. It's public, so I think we can talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to shine?
I think it started as a collaboration in our lab with some people in the finance industry, and it grew little by little. So at the beginning, it was really about a prototype, understanding whether the technology can help, and over time it translated into something bigger, something more interesting.
Do you want to tell what the actual?
Yeah. So I'll get to that. and it developed into a platform. Of course, as a group of people, it's not an endeavor that is only built only by the research lab, but as the project grew, it also extended to other divisions of IBM and became more significant. For those who don't know, I think I worked in the early stages of the development of the Lagon platform, which is a platform that enable the digitization of a financial instrument that's called bank guarantees. A bank guarantees is a piece of paper, as of today, that enables you to have financial backing from a bank. For instance, if you own a shop and you're looking for a place to exercise your business, you usually go in a shopping center. The shopping center will probably ask you as a security, because it doesn't know whether your business will be successful, to pay the rent in advance for, let's say, a year. And obviously, as a business owner, you don't have that cash at hand, so you go to a bank and you ask for what is called a bank guarantee, and you provide this piece of paper to the landlord. And the landlord, at any point in time, in case you default payment, you're late with rent and so on, is entitled to go to the bank and ask for the corresponding amount of money. So surprisingly, today, this process is still paper-based, and in the past year, we've been working on a platform that digitized this process by using blockchain technologies. It was quite exciting, and one of the projects and platform and systems that you can build that you don't see every day. And the fact that I was at the research lab when that started provided me the opportunity to contribute and work at something really interesting.
So just to summarize, just to like the usual TLDR kind of thing, this is a simple three-way relationship where you have a person guaranteeing for you, and so you have the bank guaranteeing for you, but up until now, I guess till now, it's still a piece of paper. So, and imagine that going from one place to another, you can create a fake piece of paper.
Yeah, there are several aspects where the digitization of this process helps. Obviously, one is fraud, but also just operational efficiency for certain institutions. If you think about yourself, that is the shop owner, you may just have one guarantee. You would like just to have one, just to be sure that your liability is reduced at minimum. But if you are a bank, you have thousands. If you are a owner of a shopping center whose job is to rent space for other business, you will have thousands as well. So managing all these contracts on a paper-based, through a paper-based medium, poses a lot of challenges. Number one challenge is for a bank, it's not that immediate to understand what is their exposure or liability, and by exposure and liability means if all the bank guarantees that I have issued come back to me today, and I have to pay all of them, how much money I have to give to people. That's one example. So when you digitize this process, all the aspects around reporting becomes more easy to do. Capability of developing analytics and so on becomes also an additional advantage. And the particular technologies that we have been developing, which is based on blockchain, it's an interesting fit for this problem because the bank guarantee process is a three-party agreement between the bank, the applicant, and the beneficiary. And this piece of paper needs to go across the hands of all these two people whenever you need to make a change or whenever you need to exercise an aspect of it. So when you digitize this process, and these people don't need to sit in the same room any longer because they can interface with a platform that enables them to do the same thing in minutes rather than in weeks, then I think there is a benefit for everyone.
Yeah, so for me, this is a clear example of a problem which is very simple, but also requires a very simple solution. Now, the fact that it is a bit harder to implement because we're talking about banks doesn't change the fact that at the very heart, it's a very clear problem, and solving that problem changes the whole
concept of how you trust people and how you run your business.
Yeah, I think that if you say, okay, we have a business process that is in paper, and now we digitize it, and we gain efficiency. I think it's something understandable to everyone, right? It's relatable. And you don't really need to crack your head to understand, oh, it's going to happen. And so the solution is not the difficult piece, but the enablement of this process, the transition from paper to an equivalent digital form that is equally accountable and reliable, that's where the challenge over time grows. It's not really much, oh, we need to do this, but how we do that.
Okay, so questions that might help, let's say the kids here, or at home, but they're not kids anymore. And I'll give my 20 cents about this as well. So we both have been on both sides, which is hire and be hired. So what do you look at when you're looking at, the next young software engineer that you want to employ? What strikes you?
Well, obviously it depends on the type of person that is in front of you and the level of experience. But for a person that, for instance, is recently graduated, what I would be personally looking for is, number one, if the study that he has, his study background or his interest, has provided him with a technical background that fits for the job, right? That's obvious. The second thing that I will be looking at is really not understanding how much he knows about the specific technologies, because the technologies changes very quickly, but more importantly, how he thinks about solving problems and how faces a problem or a situation where his background knowledge is insufficient to give an immediate straight answer. So how operates within a problem or in an environment. And when I say environment, I'm thinking about a possible scenario, about a solution or a system to build that is not very familiar with. And the reason for that is more and more it happens that we are faced with problems and technical challenges that we haven't seen yet. And it's very common if you are a person that comes from universities versus a person that has already been in the job for 20, 30 years, right? And the difference is experience here. So the way you relate to the unknown and unfamiliar, it's something that I usually look for when I interview people. But also, coming back again to the soft and interpersonal skill dimension, how he relates with other people, and how, if you can provide me examples on how by working together he has been able to solve a problem, and mostly, understanding how, if it's a good communicator, and very often if he makes also the right questions.
Yeah, I think that's very good. Then you guys should really take that into consideration next time you try to apply for a job. On my side, I have to deal more with people looking for an internship or the very early stage of their career. So they're not, could be their first job really. Or sometimes I even pull people out of the class that they never even thought about applying for a job. Happened quite a number of times. The things that I generally look for instead are, I ask the question, is this guy different from the others? What makes him shine? What makes him interesting? Because I receive, every time I do an internship, I receive about 100 CVs. And a lot of those CVs are really just copy and paste. And when I said before, I was talking about the soft skills. For some reason, the soft skills are now becoming the main thing that people are selling. I have software engineers who are trying to sell me their ability to schedule their own time and how great they are, and then they don't actually tell me anything about their technical skills. And that makes me wonder. So it has to be a bit of both, but at the end of the day, if I am hiring a software engineer, I want to know what the guy can do. And the one thing that I try to tell people is that homework or schoolwork is not your passion. I want to know what your passion is. I want to know what your side project is. I want to know why you do things. And I'm interested in looking at half-made projects, things that you started. I have, if you look at my GitHub, I have a gazillion of half-made projects because I started with an idea, I put something together. It's not finished, but it kind of, you can tell there was something that made me go into that direction. And that's the kind of thing that I'm looking at. Because if I have 100 CVs in front of me, I want to be able to filter them out. I want to see the one which is really shining. And I'm really thinking of potentially in the future to start using more AI to actually filter them out.
And another thing that maybe you want to consider is if you put yourself in the shoes of a person that for his job he needs to look at 100 CVs. Well, luckily it's not me, but if you think about a recruiter, right, whose job is just to recruit people. The ability to deliver the idea of who you are, what are you good at, what your key strengths are in a summary of a page, because that's the amount of attention that the recruiter will give you to your CV. He will not be reading 10 pages. It's really what can make the difference, right? So it doesn't mean that you don't need to have like 3-4 pages CV, but the most important thing that you want to communicate about yourself, who you are, 4 or 5 one sentence or 4 or 5 lines of what is your profile, what you're good at, what are the key highlights of what you've done so far, that if you are able to condensate that into a page, that makes a difference. It also teaches you how to be concise and effective when you speak to people.
Yeah, that's a lesson that I hope they'll learn, because in the last assessment, I tried to cut down how much space they had to actually discuss things.
Yeah.
So we started with 150 words, and then I tried to make it 50. Yeah, so fluffware is a thing of marketing, not a thing for...
And don't underestimate that. Alessio may probably know, I tend to kill people by boredom because I speak a lot and I'm very detailed. And it takes time and it takes effort to condense things in like just a few lines. So when you think about applying this for the position, think about whether you can do this exercise on a piece of paper and whether you can repeat that in an interview. Because that's maybe what people will remember about you.
Yeah, I mean, I can give a quick example. Like, so for example, we have Manas here who has really become really great at computer vision, and I'm happy if he just comes to me and say, I am a master of computer vision. I'm probably going to challenge him on that, but he wouldn't be coming to me and say, you know, all these stories about all the things he did, and maybe it would be a bit cocky in doing something like that. But it would also spring something in my mind and saying, maybe this guy is different. Okay, maybe I wouldn't say what's like that. Manas never wrote something like that. I'm just making it up. But he's really good. But yeah, so try to stand out of the crowd. What makes you stand out of the crowd? If you go to your usual, you know, how to write a resume webpage, remember how many people have clicked on that? Because I clicked on that as well once upon a time. And I really feel like I can't stand it. So I really want to try and make my own CV. Deliver what I want to deliver to my future employer. And super importantly, at least that's for me, it doesn't have to be for everyone. I want to make sure that my potential employer knows what I can do for him. What am I going to deliver? Am I really going to be able to do that? Maybe in your first job, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to say that. But right now, when I apply for jobs, because yes, in our lives, we still apply for jobs. even when we're securing a job. I'm not saying I'm not applying, it doesn't matter, whatever. But we still look at what's happening in the industry. And if I want to go to someone and say, I want to work for you, I'm going to do this for you. This is why you should hire me. So at some stage, you get to the point where is you wanting to work for a person rather than the person wanting you to work for them. So people should be lucky to have you. That's why I say, please try to be special when you do your things.
It is a two-way process.
Yeah.
You need to be happy about the employer, and the employer needs to be happy about you. That's how you find a good and winning position. Another thing that comes to my mind is also the social aspect of IT. For instance, as Alessio was mentioning before, having a presence in GitHub, for instance, an Ibm project that you, for instance, may be able to show in an interview, oh, look, I did this and I made it available. It is something that you may want to consider, but also if you challenge yourself and you probably know a particular topic very well and you give a talk at a meetup, these are all things that also help you to speak in public, become more confident about the things you do, and these are things that people usually look at.
So moving forward, let's go back in time, and the question for me would be, what you wish you knew as a software engineer before you actually started your first job?
I think that one of the beliefs I had long when I started my first job is that like the IT profession is all about IT, and then as I've already outlined in a couple of thoughts before, I've really learned, and I would have wished that I knew that before better, that is as much as technology as it is about people. So these have been things that I've learned sometimes hardly on the job, where I had discussion with some of my peers or people that are up in the hierarchy chain, where I come from a perspective, this is the rational approach to do things, I am right, why we're still arguing, but you still need to go through the hurdles of getting the people convinced. And at the beginning, you don't understand that technology is just a mean to an end. It's not the ultimate solution. You do for as much as passionate you can be about it and how much exciting it is, it's always a tool to solve a problem.
Okay, well, kind of running out of questions here, so I think we can actually maybe move it in a different direction. So, do you guys have any questions?
For one?
Yeah, go for it.
So you said you were applying for some new jobs. What are you looking at?
Oh! No, I try to keep myself updated. I mean, and as every person in this world, I do get recruiters, and that's because my let's say, my title on LinkedIn has a number of things. I am software engineer. I don't get any offers for lecturing, that's for sure. But I do get for both directorships and for software engineering, and that's because that's what happens when you have been working in the industry for quite a while.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just about being curious about what's outside, right? Even if you have a job that you are completely happy about it, I think curiosity is always a good drive, besides being a sign of intelligence. But really look at what's out there, even if you don't know today, tomorrow, in a year, you're not planning to change the position or the job in which you are. It also helps you to build a relationship when you will need it, because once you need it, if you haven't done anything about it, it becomes more challenging.
Yeah, plus keep in mind one thing, at least on my side, I worked for IBM for 6 years, so I'm a good software engineer, let's put it there. I wouldn't have a problem. But I left because I wanted to come to uni and actually do this thing that we're doing today. I don't think other people do it. I came here 3 years ago, and Christian knows it because we have discussed this so many times, how much our manager wanted me to try and stay. Yes, and he brought me with the first choice of desk when we moved building. So if you guys go to, you guys might have seen the IBM building, right? The one in South Bank.
So it's an open floor. It's an open floor
Anyway,
structure.
if you go to South Bank, you will see it. There's a big building with the IBM sign on it. 1, 2, 3. So 3 floors underneath the M, and 2 windows to the right. That's where the software engineering area was. And our manager was basically saying, when we moved to that building, he said, please stay, I'll give you the choice of the first desk. And I had the best desk for 1 month, unfortunately. So for me, leaving IBM was very difficult because I was really, really happy there. But ultimately, this is what I wanted to do, which was teaching and also running this crazy bunch of people called Launchpad now. I really want to change the name, but anyway, it sticks with us for now. Yeah, so hey to that. What can I say? No, that's. Anyway, somebody comes in and wants to offer me $500,000 to run their company, I'm not going to say no. Other questions?
I'm more than happy to log a bunch of questions. So you guys both work for IBM, working on a bunch of different projects, some of which you can't talk about because they're not public at this stage.
Oh, some of them, yeah, we can.
Not necessarily about your dream project. What I can ask you about is a project that didn't work out, a project where you encountered significant failure and either had to abandon the project or pivot.
Did we have any?
Yeah, I think some probably didn't
go as planned, right?
As planned, but I think in my experience, the failure is a better teacher than the success.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was hoping you'd go with this. Yeah.
What you learn when you make mistakes, it's way more valuable than what you learn when you are successful. And the reason for that is if you are successful, you know that an approach may work, but it's just 50% of what you learn when something goes wrong, right? When something goes wrong, you learn how things should not be done and what other things should have done or how you could have approached differently a problem. And usually in the environment that we've been working on, at least from my own experience, people never whips you if you make a mistake. They encourage you to try things so that you can learn and gain a good ability to guess on how to do things. It becomes a little bit more serious if you keep making the same mistakes over and over. That means really that you're not learning anything. So one of the things that I learned over time is that when you work and you are presented with projects that come from the business domain or partner, people are, of course, interested in the new technology, but they are not as passionate as you as those things. So really focusing on what is the problem at hand rather than using the technology to just hammer it, it's probably the most important lesson that I learned. It's really focusing on what people's problem and see how it can be addressed. And sometimes project may not go well just because someone is forcing an approach or a technology where there isn't the interest or
I think
the fit.
In our case, yes. In Ibm Research, you do get some time to work on your own things. And for example, if you write patents, you write your own patents. You try to follow a theme. But when you work on the larger projects, you are always working on something which people above your pay grade make decisions for. And so if it fails, I don't remember a project failing because us little ants made mistakes, but there might have been a problem in selling maybe the technology was too early, maybe the client wasn't really sold on it. But that's also the reason why research labs do exist. Um, we try things, and sometimes we try things with clients as well. So
yeah, and with respect to another type of technical profession or career, the, the researcher in the lab or the academic researcher, his job is somewhat to fail on average, right? Because that's how you learn what is the approach that works. If you never find approach that don't work, and that means you just know, keep doing what you know, you don't learn much. So in places like research labs or academic position, failure is, I think it's quite common.
yeah.
So there's an expectation that you try things before you get it right.
And you go through the iterative system. I guess I wanted to add to that. So one of the reasons also why I left IBM was because I wanted to work on my own projects. When you work in an environment that basically is made to make you creative and want to do stuff, and at some stage you really want to try and do your own things, which is the reason why I ended up also leaving IBM. Because I had many ideas for startups, many ideas for my own things that I wanted to do, and I just wanted to do them. So I can probably show you at least 10 different startup projects that we had, some successful, some less successful. I think at least half of them got some sort of funding. So for example, if you look, there's something there called Shout, drop. We managed to present it in 2019 as a startup. The first time we presented it, they actually didn't like the idea, but they gave us some insights about why don't you change it to your original concept to an HR concept instead. And we took that, so we failed the first time. We changed almost the whole thing around. We presented it at the Deakin HR, and they were actually really happy about it, and they wanted to pilot it with us. So unfortunately, when you try to do an HR system based on offices and then you get something like COVID, you're probably bound to fail. But yeah, so that's a very clear example. And we had a lot of those things. This is why we also created Launchpad. In 2018, we presented a I don't want to call it stupid, a simple idea for monitoring people inside commercial buildings using IoT devices, Bluetooth devices. And we just presented it during a hackathon for Telstra. And from that, we actually presented it outside. We started getting traction, and we actually got funding. And that was an idea that we got during a hackathon. So yeah, it's about whether or not you want to try things. If you fail, too bad.
Yeah, and also like if you think about this from the perspective of going through an interviewing process, it's very much likely that you will be told goodbye many times, right? But then I think in those cases, first you don't need to get discouraged, and you just need to think about, okay, I spent these 30 minutes, this hour with this person. We've gone to some technical problem or some behavioral situation in which I was put on. What do I think I did right? What do I think I did wrong? Right. So going across different interviews and sometimes being rejected is just a good opportunity to learn on how you can do it better the next time.
So yeah, I think the only thing is just try to stay away from that concept that came out until some years ago about fail fast. It was good at the beginning, but then everybody just got too accustomed to it, and everybody was just, who gives a damn, I'm just going to fail and see it sink to the bottom of the sea, where pretty much every project was just failing. So I would say, do an educated fail, maybe? Try to fail less. Yeah, that was something that really happened, trust me. I've seen so many people just keep repeating, fail fast, just don't worry, just fail. To the point where, yeah, we embrace fail. Yeah, that did happen.
I think that any concept that you take to the extreme probably doesn't become healthy.
Yeah.
I think that the rationale behind failing fast is that what you should bring it home with you is there is no point to spend 12 months to build a custom if you don't know if anyone will like that custom. So in that case, it's more reasonable that you start building a small house and see how things go, right? That's the concept of small fast. Is the investment that you make in things should be measured against what's your guess and certainty about success. And that's why if I know very well this will be the biggest idea of the world, then I can say, okay, maybe I can invest a little bit more time and effort and so on, because I'm sure by numbers or anything that it's not just your gut, right? There is evidence that this will work. But if you instead are in a completely uncharted area, then there's no point to work forever before figuring out whether this will go somewhere. I think that's really the concept that you should bring it home when you think about fail fast.
So because we have all software engineers here, especially people who are now facing cloud computing and also enterprise application development, so they actually still see your face every now and then.
Oh my goodness.
Why? Because I was away last week that I was sick, and I took your video instead. So actually, if you want to know, he's the guy behind the video from last week. So now technologies. Let's go actually into that. What do you think are the top technologies that people should know now and maybe in the next couple of years?
I think that in the past
they will change. Yes.
No. In the past several years, cryptocurrency and like technology about distributed ledger has become more and more interesting, not only in the cryptocurrency space, but also application of this technology to solve business problems that are not specifically related to currency, like logistics, or for instance, even vaccinations today. Artificial intelligence is becoming more and more predominant. You basically see a requirement to know something about machine learning or artificial intelligence across any job, even if it's not your expertise, at least to be familiar with these technologies.
And from an actual hands-on person who writes code, where would you put your money if you had to look at a stack?
I think the stack today, because we have virtualization, containerization, and so on, it's not as relevant as it was before. Cloud technologies allow you to basically use whatever language in stack you like. There's been more and more push toward serverless technologies and the ability to build applications that are really lean and resource contained, so that they can scale very fast.
Okay. So, do we have any more questions coming from you guys? Manas, do we have anybody commenting, saying anything, asking?
Oh, there is a question.
Oh, there is a question. Yes. Alan.
You guys know each other from, I guess, 9 years now as Crystal. So, like, before, when you started working together, so...
I met him on a bus when he was coming to apply for the job.
No, I met him the first time I met you the first time here at Deakin.
When I came in Deakin,
when I was, yes, you were giving a lecture and I was giving away free iPads.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Yeah.
So, can you guys recall any of the events or project where you guys were working together and you guys had conflict, like you were you guys were not on the same page, and how did you manage that together? Because we are running the team.
Okay.
So we would like
We,
to know, like,
so we are both Italian, you know, so we are very colorful when we talk to each other. And when we argue, we are even more colorful.
Yeah. Look, as I said before, Christian is my mentor, and I always took what he said as my baseline. That said, we have different ways of perhaps solving problems.
Yep.
So I am, as he would know very well, I'm a very confused person.
Vickiola.
I'm a hack and slash kind of person. Doesn't matter what, I'll make it work somehow. Christian instead is my complete opposite and nemesis, where at some stage he was trying to teach me test-driven development. So he is. If he doesn't have tests, don't write it.
So in our research lab, we have a set of projects that we call them Skunk Works. So Skunk Works. And those are projects that are initiatives that a person in the lab takes by himself and just try things out to see how eventually they will come up together. So Alice is the master of Skunk.
Yeah, so that actually...
Because it explores a lot of things and he likes to engage in...
Yeah, and we got to the stage where we actually formalized that. So I was actually the team lead for this. We ended up calling it CADS, and that was, at the beginning, it actually stood for kick-ass demos, but then it actually got to the stage where it almost became a product. And so it didn't seem nice when we go to clients and say, hey, we're going to give you a kick-ass demo. Yeah, so that still exists. But that's also what we base Launchpad on, to try and do this 1 month engagements. And it worked really well. You need to have a good team that understands you. So definitely Christian wouldn't be on that team.
They're not good enough.
No, it's just, like I said, I'm a hack and slash kind of person, and I try to keep things as, as clean as possible. But then, for me, at the end of the day, it's about delivering a product, delivering what the client would like to see, because potentially what I make will then become a bigger project for Christian to take on, which he will just put everything that I made in the rubbish bin. But
No.
No. I'll give him the concept. Yeah, I will give him the concept, and then they will take it to a larger base.
If I think all the time that we didn't see eye to eye with Alessia, I think not many time was about technologies. I think it was more about getting along with people.
By the way, we sit next to each other. We used to sit next to each other.
Yeah. But, yep.
This is probably a little bit of you guys can answer together or individually. Excluding yourselves, who's your favorite person to work with at the IBM lab? What sets them apart?
That's a difficult one.
So our team, so when I've been in IBM, I changed 5 times manager over time because the team were continuously restructured. So I had the opportunity to work with a lot of people in my lab, not only in my team, but also across teams, because very often, because we were having a software engineering function, sometimes I was asked to work on a project of another group because of the technical support. Most of the time, I think all of them I enjoy to work with all my colleagues. Of course, the people that remained in my team are the persons that I develop more connection with and ability to work effectively. But there has been a period where I think for about 1.5 years, we were having a collaboration with another lab in IBM in Singapore. And I think that's been probably, in terms of working with people and project, been the best time I had in IBM for 1 year. Not only because we were flying to Singapore very often, but also because the people there were, I really developed a good relationship with the team leader there. So for instance, after work, we were going running around Marina Bay because the office is in city center and things. And even if today I don't have projects within anymore, we still catch up each other regularly and tell about what's happening.
Yeah, it was actually quite amazing, right? I mean, it seems cheaper to continuously shift people from Melbourne to Singapore than to get people there directly. But anyway, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's opportunity. Sometimes the opportunity is in a certain geographic location, and you may not have immediately the skill in that place, or you may not be able to immediately source it. So the advantage of working in a big company is that in a big company usually has this means to move people. That
just wasn't that great for me because I think I just came out of one of those 10 kilos challenges. So I actually lost like 10 kilos. I'm not going to say how much I was, but I just lost 10 kilos, and then you get shifted to Singapore for 3 months, on and off, 5-star hotel, paid breakfast. And Singapore is just one of the greatest places in the world for food.
Just once paid breakfast. Don't make it like a...
What? I always had it.
So I suppose then for Alessio, the question should not be about your favorite team member, but maybe your favorite meal in Singapore.
No, I think I love everything in Singapore. Crab is definitely the best thing. No, for me, the team member, apart from Christian, of course, definitely was the lab director. Still is the lab director. I still talk to him on a regular basis.
Huh? Associate, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, now he's associate, yes. His name is Jörg von Kennel. He's the first person that I met from the lab, and he is this super lovable Swiss guy that in his spare time he makes wood puzzles. And
wood puzzles.
Yes, he's the most awesome person in the world, I reckon. And it's the kind of, back then he was my manager. We started having managers after a few years. Before that we had like the
before he was the manager of everyone.
Yeah, before he was the manager of everyone. Then when they realized that he couldn't keep 70 people under his arm, they said, okay, we need to give you managers. But that's actually, I think that is the biggest and the best lesson that I always learned, which is to be kind to your employees. And you know, when your employee has a problem, you should always go and say, how can I help you? And think, which is something that it's different within the environment that I am now. But back then, yeah, I mean, it's like all kind of problems, I would just go up to him and he would just listen to me. And I mean, there was this time that my ex moved to Sydney and I was here and I was having a hard time, and he just said, you know that we have labs everywhere, just go to work in the Sydney lab instead. You know, it's not like for a while. And yeah, I think he knew more about my problems than my dad ever listened to. And I'm not joking about that. So that's, I think that was the one thing that I really made it really hard for me to leave IBM. And all the great people, I think. I think everybody was great in their own way. I can remember some people more than others, but definitely everybody was great.
Yeah, and you had this gamut of personalities. Right? There are some people that are more composed, and some people that are definitely more colorful,
characters,
expressive, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, in my lifetime there, one of the things that I was doing was also to try to find young superstar developers. That's the reason why I was going to hackathons as well, to try and find, you know, the potential next, I don't want to say next me because next me is a bad thing, next Christian, so to say. And I found it a number of times. I mean, Dane is definitely the example. And, you know, so we got these guys and fought to have them there. And then, you know, I think Dane, he left 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he left 2 years ago. He was kind of like, let's say, prodigy kind of thing. Then he became Christian's prodigy when I left.
He's a very capable person.
Oh,
software engineering.
Yeah. And 2 years ago, he called me up and said, you're the first person that I want to tell this to, but I decided to join Amazon and blah, blah. And I went, oh, well, I mean, look. And then he was like, he showed me how much he got offered. And I was like, yeah, well, yeah, go for it. Absolutely. That's more than I make.
I mean, you also need to consider he moved to US. Right?
Yeah.
So US has a
Different style. But
yeah.
still, one of those offers that you can't say no. But it was really good. There's always this respect. I don't have memories of people backstabbing other people.
Yeah, I think we're pretty lucky in terms of the bunch of people we had to work with. We worked with across the entire lab, not just my team. They are all people that are all reasonable and always trying to solve problems together rather than fighting. So that's really helped making the working environment, even when you are a lot of under stress, livable, and a lot of bright people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that's the one thing. It's about learning from the others as well. So,
for instance, in our team, we had for about 4 or 5 years a user experience designer. So, and he brought a completely different perspective to projects and things, right? But all of us were more like software engineering or researchers. He had a background more in user experience. And therefore, I remember at the beginning, we did have a bit of struggle because we didn't really find a way to work well each other at the beginning, but over time, I think we've become a very effective team, right?
So this is actually one thing that I would recommend to bring to your job interview. Always bring the lesson that you learned by solving, what do you call it? Solving problem with other people. How did you solve a problem with collaborating with other people? Anyway, bring a problem. How did you solve a problem? And generally working with other people is always the case.
Yeah, very often people is interviewing is interested in you being able to articulate a situation, a task that you were given. What did you do in terms of activity and what was the result? Right. So that's usually a common format in which people want you to answer an interview question. Situation, task, activity, results.
Yeah, and so my example was actually with this UX guy, which at the beginning we really had almost physical fights, but no. But let's say that we were really on two completely different line of thoughts. And when I became team lead for the CADs, for the Skunk Works team, and he was the UX designer for that specific, it was really hard. But that's also one of the biggest lessons that I learned, how to manage people, which for me was just not let people go, but let people do their own thing. And even if I didn't like it, just give him more space, and eventually he will open up to you. We had like huge fights all the time, and I would say, no, that's not how I want it. I don't think that's right. And that's where my manager came in and say, I think you should go there and say, how can I help you, instead of criticizing him. And so I started to do that. I started to say, instead of saying, I don't like that, I would just say, okay, looks good. I think we should go that way. And after a while, then I started changing a little. Instead of, I would say, I think that's good, but what do you think if we also try this one? And he would react in a much better way. So this is my story when I have to talk about conflict resolution. That's the word I was looking for. Yes, conflict resolution.
And another thing that maybe it's important to take into account is, so if I take my career in IBM, from day one to today, From an HR perspective, which means human resources perspective, I've never been a manager, ever. Which means there is no single person that reports to me from a organizational structure perspective. But I'm still asked today to lead a group of people, right? That they don't necessarily need to listen to me, or he's one of them. And don't make the mistake to say, oh, because I'm not empowered to have control of people, then you are setting me back, right? The fact that someone is a manager of you is just an organizational structure function. It doesn't give you the capability to be listened. The capability to be listened is learned even in the interactions that you have with people today, right? And how do you get someone else to not really do what you want, but understand your point of view and work together towards a solution? And it is something that you can exercise every day, regardless of what is your role in the pyramid. Because every one of us, at the end of the day, decide or not to listen to people, regardless if whether it's your boss, or your dad, your mom, or whoever else it is, right? It's our own decision, in most of the cases, to listen to people or not. And then we decide also to face the consequences of not doing that, but it's always our decision. So if I give you an advice on the people skill dimension, it is something that I would pay some attention on how to grow in that dimension, because it helps very lot. It helped me a lot that still today I'm not manager, but I get to be listened by people.
Okay, so I think we had a lot about this discussion. So why don't you guys now throw some of your...
We have a generic question from the chats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's by the user HGG. Doesn't mention his name, but the question is, what type of IT engineer, such as front-end, back-end, ML, quality analyst, would most likely be in a higher demand in the next 3 to 5 years?
Machine learning, what was that? So back-end, front-end?
Machine learning, back-end, front-end, quality analyst, and data. I suppose he meant data analyst.
So it really depends, because as I shift pretty much everywhere, if I had to go and put my money somewhere, I would probably just put my money just equally on each one of them, because it's very hard to understand where things are going, even if I was a data scientist.
Yeah, I think that if you, for instance, are looking more towards a job in a startup or a position in an environment that is very dynamic, where things could change very frequently in terms of technology stack and so on, the ability of adapting is essential, and having the profile of a full stack engineer, which means the ability to move across front-end, back-end, and also systems is really important. It doesn't mean that you need to be a killer programmer at each of all of these. Like, for instance, in my case, I have more experience in distributed system technologies and back-end rather than front-end technologies, but I can still do some basic React and put together a user interface. And
I think if you look at the list that you have there, I mean, all of those jobs will have, you can find a job. It's not whether or not you are fit for the market. It's whether or not you are good at what you do.
Yeah.
If you're a good front end or back end, you will find a job. If you're good at machine learning, you'll find a job. If you're good at data science, you will find a job. So it doesn't matter. If you study data science, but then you can't or don't know how to apply it, doesn't matter.
And if you instead are more interested in working in large companies, because they are larger, very often it becomes easier that roles get more refined. So then you can become more of a specialist. So it also depends on what type of jobs are you, and what type of working experience are you looking for. Usually in in a startup scenario or in a small company scenario, you need to be more of a factotum, which means full stack role, simply because there are less people, so you will be asked to do more things, right? If you tend to approach jobs that are offered in large companies, you still see that they look for full stack engineers sometimes, but it's easier to find more refined role and more specialized one just because there's many people and they can afford it.
Yeah, and keep in mind that you need to be very specialized because, imagine that now we have this no-code revolution where we don't really need front-end developers anymore. You can do things on platforms like Bubble or what's the other one? I can't remember. Anyway, there's plenty of platforms where you don't need to write code anymore. And 2 years ago they were like crap. Now they're actually proper solutions. I've seen actual advertisement for, I'm looking for a Bubble engineer. I was like, what the? So those things now exist. And the same thing goes for machine learning or data science. Can you solve a lot of those problems with generic platforms like Watson or SageMaker or all of the cloud solutions that are already there? And the answer is yes. But if you're really good, then you can do your own things, and then you don't need those solutions anymore. So everybody is kind of, you need to be good, that's all.
Another type of profile that you may want to consider as you develop your career is the pathway towards software architecture. So software architects are usually identified as profiles that have a T-shape. A T-shape means that they are broad, but they have one area in which they're deep. And it usually is not an entry-level job in the sense that very often if you get out of university, you start as an entry developer, middle developer, you become senior engineer. But it's something that you may want to think in perspective, the ability to have to see things end to end, right? At a broader level of detail, at a higher level of detail, but then still retain your specialization in a particular area, right? You can't be a specialist across the entire spectrum, because then probably you would be very sought after. But that allows you to, move into directions, right?
Plus, it's kind of a pyramid, so there's maybe only 1% of the software engineers become actual architects. So basically, any job that comes out, there's only a very few people that can potentially apply. But
it's also curious, sometimes people that end up being architects don't initially have a computer science background, they're more of an information system background. And then that means that they have to develop the depth, while a person that probably comes from a software engineering or a computer background naturally has the depth, and he needs to develop the breadth.
Do we have any other questions?
Yes, we have one more question from the chat. That's from Donna Yuri. The question is...
Hi, Donna.
Hi. So the question is, how best to highlight your technical skills on the resume when you don't have any work experience?
I think that probably what I was mentioning before, if you have like side projects, you have a social presence in something like GitHub or related website where you can showcase what you do, right? Because it's not really, so even past job experience is about what you do, right? People want to understand how you're capable of. So I would suggest that probably a good way is if you're looking for a technical profession, a software developer, software engineer, and the likes, open your GitHub account, start putting some projects there, and show that you're learning, and show that you are experimenting things, right? Nobody expects you, if you get out of the university, to already have like 2 years of job.
Yeah, and
curriculum, right?
Just build something. I think, so when I first started learning Node.js, and I think Christian might remember that, I was doing that analysis tool to do all of the social networks back then, and you were teaching me how to do the proper MVC. So what I was trying to do was gather all the pictures from Facebook and what did we use back then? Tumblr? Does Tumblr still
Tumblr,
exist? No, not Facebook. Facebook didn't allow it. But Tumblr, Instagram, and something else, because I wanted to do like a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing where you say, in this location, I want to find all of the things, like I want to find all of the cats within this location. And so I would get all of the social media within like 5 kilometers and then analyze which one of them and to see how many cats would appear on social media in that area. And so this is something that I would see as a person who is willing to learn, is trying himself, is coming up with his own ideas, and he can solve problems. Yeah, I was very clear. I wanted to find out, I wanted to create my own investigation tool. After that, I started making another project, which was, we called SOSTA, which was a social stalker, which will take all of your...
See what I have to copy every day.
Okay, so let's put everything on the table. My actual background is in social media analytics, so my PhD was in social media analytics. So when people say, oh, you know, Facebook is creating these algorithms to turn us into zombies, yeah, actually, I was on the other side. Yes, so for example, my second project around this was I would put the username and then the system would just keep on stalking you, find you on the map. And I think at some stage I managed to find Obama once because I think some guy made a mistake on his, so I have only one geolocalized tweet from Obama. Yeah, because the staff doesn't, his account is of course private for the geolocation. But yeah, it's try to do something cool that is very clear to people what you're trying to do.
And also depends like your past studies. Different universities have a different balance between the practice and the book. Some universities provide you a more solid background on the computer science side, but they are less hands-on. Other ones are vice versa. And these are two components that needs to go together, right? The theory helps you understand how things should be organized when you absolutely do not know anything about that. But the practice is extremely important because it's what allows the learning to soak in. Someone can tell you how to cycle in a bike. If you don't try, you will never get the equilibrium, right? So that's the same thing. There's a theory that needs to be learned, but once you understand the learning, the practice is what it makes it soak in, and it makes you be able to repeat it without thinking too much.
So actually one thing that we did this year that was not done before, was to try and put this innovation path within the actual coursework. So now all the students that do software engineering, instead of running a project out of whatever they want, they have to work towards the 8 research themes of the university, of the faculty. So for example, I don't know, now none of them come to my mind, architecture and construction, or health, or cybersecurity, all of these topics. And the idea is that they just need to think at a high level what kind of project they want to work on, what kind of problem they want to solve. Like for example, now I'm going to go back to this because it's something that I actually want to do. Marine biology, we could do things like fish counting. And I know it seems like a very weird thing to do, but fish counting is actually something that the fish industry really wants to do. There was actually a grant for $120,000 last year that I was applying for.
To count fish?
To count fish, yes. Because, for example, doing computer vision for fish, it's actually quite difficult because it's under the water. It's,
they all look blue.
Yes, exactly. There was this lady that I met that she wanted to do use AI to understand at what stage barramundi were going to change sex. Because it's very important for them, because this way they can predict when there's going to be good conditions for fishing. Yes, and I didn't know that barramundis do actually change sex. So there's all of these kind of projects and this is where you can really have freedom to do whatever you want. It's something that we're still testing. Maybe we need some hand-in-hand kind of help. But yeah, we want to try and move away from, hey, this is a problem, go and solve it, and just let you do the, just work. Get something interesting to work on. So yeah, any other questions? Otherwise, the next thing I was going to ask is, does anyone wants to talk about the actual project that they want to present?
I don't want to talk about my project, but I can. That's not good.
Which one was yours?
Mine is the one where I'm going to try and solve what my car is in the car park using your phone and augmented reality.
Okay.
So the idea is that I'm stupid, can't remember where I parked my car in a multi-level car park, like the one at the Deakin, rather than walk around the car park, which I have done before, looking for my nondescript grey car. I figured I would just hold my phone up and it would show a nice little picture of, hey, your car's over here. So that's my project. My questions about it are kind of like, does that even solve the requirements of this task?
So you're, let me see if I understood. So you don't know where your car is. You parked it in the car park. That's
I hope you forgot where the car is.
But then you want to point your phone in a direction, and it takes a picture and relates to the position of the car.
It's like a little display of something that's approximately your car, and in order to kind of satisfy the requirements of this, I was thinking you connect that to a database that's managed by the car park, and everyone's car is kind of slotted into their respective car park. So
you know, when you go to the shopping center, I don't know if they exist here. I think maybe Ringwood does have it, where you put in your registration and the system will find it.
Kind of like that, yeah. Yeah, there's those systems that do similar things. Like the kind of main one you see is a place like Marston is as you come into the car parks, they'll have like row and free car park indicators. But the same system can kind of track all that if you have each car park represented with a sort of locator that you can scan with the phone's camera, which it sort of automatically registers where your car is. You can connect the whole thing relatively easily. But yeah.
I've been in cases where I was going in a car park that I'm not used to very often, right? So sometimes even remembering which floor it was after a very long day may be challenging. And all these floors, they look the same, right?
Yeah, yeah. And you're like, oh, was it the letter D? Was it the letter F? Was it 1? Was it 75?
Yeah, I think at some stage it's about, I mean, it's nice to try and find some really cool idea, but even just solving everyday's problem, I think it's a fine thing to do. And the fact is, we don't really have it here at Deakin. It's not about, I think as for any startup or any project that you begin with, you start with an actual problem and you try to solve that problem. But in your experience, you actually end up creating something completely different at the end of your journey, and you end up with a completely different solution. And that happens everywhere. I mean, that happened even me and Manas are working now with a couple. They came to me 6 months ago that they wanted to do AR, not AR. They wanted to create very high resolution 3D models to be used for the fashion industry so that they could sell clothes better, so they can try the clothes directly on the body. But these had to be really high resolution, not like the crappy, just overlay images on. And back then, we didn't have that much information. We didn't know if it was possible, so we started doing the research. We had a concept, we didn't know if it was possible. But in doing the research, we ended up figuring out that there was a huge market for 3D avatars, and maybe we don't need the really super high resolution ones. We can solve another problem, which is how do you simply create a 3D avatar that you can export to everywhere, to your Microsoft Mesh now, to your 3D game, to whatever. So there is an actual need for that. And so we ended up starting with a problem and ending up with a completely different solution. And that's where potentially you can start. You start with you want to find where your car is, and then you might end up with, I don't know, something for the supermarket where you can go and solve something out of it.
Where's my wife?
Yeah, that could be.
There she is. In the chocolate section. All right.
Yeah. So regardless, I think you should always try to stick to your idea because that's your beliefs. And eventually, first of all, you gain experience. Second, can you build it? Because at the end of the day, we're also here to try and build those things. And if you can't build it, I think that's still a very good reason to try and build it.
Yeah, so sometimes some of the most interesting ideas are those that come from annoyances, like the one you said, I can't find my car. I remember it was about 5 years ago. So we, in the research lab, we do prototype work sometimes for projects. But then we live within the structure of the organizations, right, which sells product. And therefore, there is a scenario. There are scenarios where maybe you do a prototype, something that's promising, and then you hand it over to a business division. They want to develop it into a product, right? The moment they develop it into a product, a lot of things that you didn't care about before because you were just doing a prototype becomes important. In particular, like licensing of software libraries, right? If an organization sells a product and wants to retain it closed source, or it wants to do whatever it desires to do, very often the extent of how much it can do those things depend on the makeup of the software that you're building in terms of libraries, and also how these libraries are licensed. Right? There are some libraries that are associated with licenses that allows you to disclose the source code if you want. So,
I think super quick example, you can't, from memory, you can't just put Google Map on your website and sell your website.
Yeah, things like that. So we went into a situation that we were building a modeling tool for bushfires and other components that were supportive of decision making, right? Where to put fire outposts for fighting potential fires and so on. And when we built this prototype, we were more interested in the idea, right? But then some of the people in other divisions of IBM got interested and say, oh, can we do something about that? And the first issue was, okay, now that we are almost finished all this development of the prototype, let's go back and check all the libraries that we used and see whether, for instance, there is some library that maybe we have to replace, right? Because at the beginning, it really wasn't an item that was of interest to us, right? And then it has been painful, right? Because you have to go over 100, sometimes more dependencies. If you use tools like NPM and Maven, the number of dependencies just skyrockets, right? And then I said that this seems to me an incredibly stupid task to do by a human. Can we do something about it, right? And I built, at that time, we were using Maven as a primary technology. I built a Maven plugin that basically connected to the organization. Our organization had somewhat a database that tells you which library you can use. And while you were building software in continuous integration, it was scanning all the dependencies at that point in time, and it was producing you a report and say, oh, you're using all these libraries, they have all these licenses, this one you cannot use, right? That to me was a particularly interesting thing that eventually, a few years later, IBM developed as an internal tool, not necessarily taking what I did, but the fact that they spent time doing it demonstrated it was useful. That came out of an annoyance, right? The annoyance was, oh, now I need to scavenge these 150 dependencies by hand and figure out whether they fit into this database and which license it is, does the name match even, and so on.
Yeah, fortunately, when you work for a place like IBM, you are in danger of, I mean, if you do something wrong, people will come hunting you for money.
I mean, it's not that extreme, but in any large company, right, it's usually always subject to be more easily targeted sometimes, right? So they are more exposed than the single individual because of their ubiquity like in the market. So that's no.
Was that Shark?
Huh?
What was the name of the project? Shark?
No, this is a evaluation modeler.
No, but the one that you built.
Oh, Razor.
Oh, Razor, that's right. Something like that. What was the question? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I think try to build it and see where you go with it. And also remember that you have to, I just saw the thing moving. Also remember that you have to collaborate with other people, and with the other people, you may be the one leading, meaning that you will do your project, or potentially you will work with somebody else's on someone else's project.
And
so,
I mean, that's one of my concerns. I can't speak for the other students in the role in the unit. I'm very fortunate. I have an extensive VR background as a student, so it's a very comfortable environment for me. But I imagine that I might be the only student in the unit that that's the case for.
you might be surprised.
Yeah, but the other side of it is sort of, and it's something I was talking about with Kim earlier. Sorry to throw you into the basket. We've got kind of 9 days to get this MVP thing going, and from what we're seeing with requirements, we want to have some sort of working prototype. Can you elaborate as to what we're meant to be doing here? Because the HD is basically saying you need to develop it to completion in 9 days.
So, okay, no, so for the HD, so you, okay, so you need to develop something. You need to develop something which has a reason to exist. First of all, this is why you guys did your problem exploration and then coming up with the solution. Now, the way to get your HD is to go and develop at least a prototype of this, and in respect to the rubric, because you also have to follow the rubric, is you need to use some of the technologies that you get taught during the actual class. So if you guys are both in 780, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, what you need to showcase to get your HD is that your code is written properly. You make use of a testing, of some sort of testing. If you guys are using, I think we decided to use Mocha, but if you guys are using, if you're developing something in VR, then you might have it on C#, I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably C#.
So regardless, you need to showcase that your code has been built with some sort of testing within it.
And control scope.
What?
Scope.
Okay, yeah, you need to be within a scope.
I love that you heard that.
And also you need to showcase that you are doing things properly, as in you are using Git, you are doing your commits, you're running your comments on your commits, and what else are the other things that you have to use? You probably need to Dockerize your application somewhere, or so there might be some edge cases, because now I don't know the actual bits and details, whatever, of the project. But in case, I'm happy to listen and say, okay, how do we make a proper scope which will showcase HD? At the end of the day, an HD in a enterprise level application means it has to be stable, it has to be properly designed, you need to behave professionally, and well, it has to work somehow. But all those 4 things that have to exist. It's not just about hacking and slashing it. So you have to adhere to the standards, because you are in an enterprise kind of thing.
I think sort of main concern, and touched on the Christian, is the idea of the scope. So for my example, we're looking at a bunch of pretty significant developmental features, such as analyzing video of a 3D object in the car park, and then mapping that to something that has been stored in the app to say, oh, okay, this is the car park we're looking at.
What do you think is the minimum in terms of functionality?
Well, I think that's more something I guess I'm not really 100% sure on how to apply in my situation. I consider the minimum is, can I scan a QR code and put a car on the screen? And that will be, some part of the development process of that app, but it wouldn't be functional. The minimum functionality, for my example, would more or less require an entire
I think that probably, and you can
go for
contradict
it.
me if I'm wrong here. Right? So you want to build an app, right? And it's a student project. I understand it's a student project, right? So it's not something that tomorrow you are going to sell to 100 millions of people. Not because eventually will not happen, but it will happen or not. It's not tomorrow, right? So across all of the things that you need to build, there is a selection of the one that really matters for the applications that you are doing versus the one that you will be building if you were to build any other type of application, right? And I think that is where the balance is between across all these 10 functionality, which I need all of them, right, to make the application functional. There are probably 4 or 5 that are no different if you were building a different application, right? But they don't give additional value to what you do if you have to demonstrate an MVP. So I think this is where probably you can take some reduction.
So try to think, what problem are you trying to solve, and does your MVP solve that problem? Doing the part in VR or having the 3D model, I feel that it could be an enhancement to the solution. But ultimately, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Which is why to many, many people in the first assessment, I said, and I kept repeating, don't give me a solution. I just want to know what problem you're working on.
Yeah.
So for example, and I'll be very straightforward. What problem are you trying to solve?
The problem is essentially given a sort of coordinates, place a marker on the screen and says this is where to go, basically.
So you are not, see, that's not a problem. You're giving me a solution right now. You're giving me something. What is the problem? Tell me, what is the problem?
I don't know what something is.
The problem, yes,
Okay.
Thank you. That is exactly what you are trying to do. So you need to clarify things. So how do you define whether or not your project is successful? Whether or not, after using your application, you can find the thing.
Yeah, okay.
So what goes in between?
Because Christian touched on this idea, I want to sort of throw it out explicitly. Would it be fair to say the MVP should be the elements of your solution that are not just critical, but also unique to solving the problem?
Yeah.
Unique is cool. Unique
So,
will be unique is what makes it cool. But what makes it functional is what you should demonstrate.
Yeah, but for instance, maybe it's not your case, right? But let's suppose that you're trying to demonstrate an application where you want to find something that you don't know what it is, whether it's a car or something else, right? The difference from the application that you demonstrate and something that will become a product is, as a user, I have a profile in this application with settings and so on. Probably it's not so important, right, that you develop that capability now, because profile management, you do it for this application, you do it for another one, it doesn't really change. It's just chores that you put it into the application to make it usable as a product. But if you want to demonstrate the idea, it's more important the user experience of you providing information on the application, for instance, so that the application can find what you're looking for, right? So that's I would imagine that in terms of critical functions and uniques, that's where the focus should be versus looking at accessory things that make something a product, but they are not different across.
So if you would have done 725, have you done 725?
No.
So how are you in 7? Isn't 725 pretty rare?
So yeah, if you've done something like a graphic panel or
Okay, they're still doing it. I need to find a way around this. Yeah. So the one thing that you would need the one thing that we teach is that you have X amount of time, and you have to give me a list of all the features that you guys want to build, and onto that feature, go for it. You have to tell me how long those features will take, and from that we can try to understand how much is possible to do. Now, let's say that, for example, what you need to do is to park a car, save the GPS location, and then finding it again, and then do the visualization. Now, from an engineering perspective, there's quite a lot of work here to do. And out of all of those, which one is the one which is functional and which one is not so functional that can be replaced? The visualization.
Visualization, everything that's front, everything that's interactive with Unity, that's all superfluous.
Yes.
Yeah, so all back end, storing GPS location, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
So if you make a list of everything that has to happen, and if I need to test this application, right? The one test that I would normally do, and this is how normal tests also work, is that I test it and then Christian tests it with different parameters. So we should both be able to park our car in different places. The two locations are two different locations, and when I say find my car, the system retrieves my car and gives me some sort of information, right? And Christian does the same, but he gets different information, of course, because it's just for his car. This is what, from an engineering perspective, it should come up. Now, from an MVP perspective, the fact that you're doing the visualization, I would be happy even if you just give me a picture of what I can envision. I don't, because I can't really go and say whether or not what I see is proper. I'm not a VR person, so I'm interested in what happens in the process.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can even just look at the code and say, yes, this will work right.
In a different scenario where rather than coming up with an idea that you need to develop a project around, but before joining IBM, I was working at the University of Melbourne. I taught distributed systems. And as part of the exam, I was giving people the practical project to develop. They could choose 3 different types of projects, right? And one was developing an interactive whiteboard so people could draw together. Another one was building Bomberman, which is a game, and a car racing demo, right? Different students group came with a variety of projects, right? Some of them used like a completely 3D engine to do the car racing and so on. Others but in the end, what really mattered as a baseline was, does this thing do what it's supposed to do first, right? It's really the first argument, which still translates into the project that you're working on, even if the scenario is different, right? Is it the MVP that I'm proposing to you and showcasing to you, does it solve the problem that I told you I'm going to solve, right? And then people look at the rest, which is the bells and whistles and so on.
It's kind of like when you're doing like a second or third year coding project and rubric has nothing on it about bugs. If it does the job, you can submit that.
Well, see the thing, for me the rubric is it's part of the bureaucracy, which is something that I have to adhere to follow rather than something that I have to follow. If you see the way I run my units, all of my units, basically the last 3 weeks, they turn into consultations with me. So from in week 8, 10, and 12, so you don't have 11 and 9, you have to sit down with me and you have to explain your project to me. And trust me, from my effort perspective, this is extremely painful on me. But I want to make sure that the students do enjoy what they do, and I give them proper feedback. So you come to me and you say, okay, let's discuss this project. Because at the end of the day, and this is on my CV, I say very, very explicitly, I am a software engineer. So I enjoy doing this. I don't know for how long I will still do it, but for now I enjoy doing it, and I want to hear your problems and what you want to solve. And my job here, when I sit on the other side of the table, is to help you to develop it. It's not just to say, no, yep, that's crap, or no, this will not get your marks. If you don't get the full marks after I give you guidance, there's a problem on what I'm teaching.
So to dial back to something we discussed an hour and a half ago, we'll take, we spoke earlier on about time management. I'm pretty time management focused. If you were to just eyeball or heuristically sort of approach this in terms of a investment time, how many hours should someone spend on this assessment center?
I think if you're doing something that you like to do, that you want to keep for the future, that you want to showcase to somebody outside, you spend as much time as you want.
I agree, but I'm sure I'm the only students in this boat, right?
No,
20 hours a week and capturing the units.
Yeah,
units
I
sort
think
of
you need
balance sleep and that sort of stuff.
you need to fit it into all the other things that also you need.
Yeah.
Okay,
to
ask
do,
this guy.
subjects.
Manas, how much time did you spend on your on the computer vision project last week?
Last week, at least 12 hours a day.
Yeah, he's not.
At least.
I'm not forcing him. And I actually tell him why are you still awake and doing this? It's because that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, but
nobody's forcing him to.
No,
That's me.
but Alicia, I think he has a point.
Yeah,
Right?
he definitely has a point. Yes.
At some point, it becomes a subject with a project that he has to deliver, right?
Mm.
Yeah. Like I can open up my spreadsheet. It tells you exactly how many hours I have between now and due date to get this done, and when it's going to start cutting to sleep, when it's going to start affecting my ability to interact with my girlfriend in any capacity. So
I think it would be good that you start walking back, right? This is the date that I need to finish the project. By this date, I need to have done this. By this other date, I need to have done this. And by this date, this needs to happen. That provides you not the amount of hours that you need to work on that project, but it gives you a set of checkpoints to ensure that you're progressing in the direction that brings to completion.
Also because at this level, and I think it's on my slides for 75, I say, you are supposed to be working on this unit for 150 hours. This is what it says on the unit guide. I don't know what this comes from, how they got this number. It could be just one guy just woke up and say, yep, this unit is worth 150 hours. But I made it very clear on it. If you can clear your task in 2 hours, for some people to do, okay, I make tasks which I believe are achievable within the 10 hours a week that you should be dedicating to one unit. There are going to be some people who are going to take 2 hours to do it. There are going to be people who are going to take 20 hours to do it. And it's just
the time that you spend, it's not really indicative because sometimes also depends.
That makes sense.
I think what's more reasonable is having a set of checkpoints over the life cycle of what you have to deliver to ensure that you're kind of closing in rather than widening out, right?
Yeah, and the one thing, the way I always start, and the people who did 75 know this, the first meeting that you have with me is come with a Trello board and tell me all the tasks, how much time they will require. Because if you have 5 weeks left, it means you have 50 hours. So if you sum up all of the tasks, it shouldn't be more than 50.
Yeah, so that already provides you a ballpark, like.
And my job there is to say, no, dude, this task doesn't take 8 hours. This one takes 2 hours, and this task here takes probably 20 hours instead of 4. And it's tried. I've seen people who said, oh, I need to set up a Node.js web server, so I'm going to put 12 hours. I say, what? Yeah, so those things do exist.
My take me 12 hours, but that's just because I'm happy.
Yeah. I think, so I'm going to say thanks to Christian for coming, but unfortunately he has.
Thank you for attending, everyone. I think it's been a good experience to talk to people and share some knowledge, but also learn about what all you guys do and what you're into with this guy.
Yeah, maybe at the end of the trimester we'll have like a showcase of people who actually made it.
All right.
So thank you so much, Christian.
Thanks, Alicia, for inviting me.
And yes, I'll continue with these guys with a bit more coursework. Thank you so much, and catch up with you later.
Okay.
And all right, guys. So let's. So does that provide you with enough information?
I think it's enough to sort of put a vague idea. I'm sure you'll probably not use it on the chat, but someone will get an email.
Look, for me, it's just most of the time I'm up here with my team, and all of them, they are nice people, and they help when we have all we are all working towards this thing of helping students, because we also want to try and attract more students to come and work up here. Um, Anyway, so you can come up here and just discuss with us. If it's through an email, it becomes really boring. So maybe just call me if you have something. I'd rather, because otherwise I have to spend, like when he sends me emails, I feel like, I'm going to respond later.
Just to clarify, he's talking about him.
Yeah, I'm talking about him. I'm talking about him.
Again, under the bus. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot less.
And that's because there's also a lot of loss in, there's a lot of loss in translation and communication. Unfortunately, every person in the university, but also students, they have their own way of treating this relationship with students. Me, I absolutely don't care. You guys can come and talk to me. If it's too formal, I will tell you, look, this is boring, and you will find out because I'm very slow at replying. But it's also you have the opposite where, I got people sending me emails saying, hey, it's like, is this like, I'm not Fonzie, for God's sake. Don't. Yeah, so there are definitely things. But I'm always very keen to discuss things because I like to talk, unfortunately, and which is probably why I'm in front of a camera now. Definitely a lot of things can happen. But yeah, I hope this helps. Other questions, people? Pawan, you had questions. Yes, Soriano.
During the group assignment, can we work here?
Sorry?
During the group
Yeah, of
assignment?
course. Yeah, this place was made for people to work. So absolutely. You just keep in mind that you will see me running from place to place. So I'm happy that you want to, say, hey, can I ask you a question? But yeah, you will see me running from one place to another. And if I don't answer you, don't try to trip me over because I will probably get up and kick you in the face. So I had people trying to do that, to try to violently block me while I'm going from one place to another. Pawan, you had questions about your project. Please share them here in this forum of people.
I would like to share my idea first, like my problem first. So I came across, like, my research team was health technologies.
Yes.
So I came, the problem was like people, heart attack is very common nowadays. People having heart attacks and they are not able to help themselves. Like especially at night time, all of a sudden they get heart attack and they are not able to like call someone or like seek for help to save their life eventually. So this was actually a problem I want to solve, like because I lost my loved ones due to this situation. Like they were like at sleep at night and all of a sudden they lost their life and we were not aware of that thing. So the solution that came to my mind was that like there should be a system which should, like there are smart devices available right now which can detect the ECG. So I want to, want an application that can, with the help of smart devices, I can detect that ECG and then send to the application, and then application could detect whether it's a symptom of heart attack or it is an actual heart attack, and then that can notify the person as well and the nearby medical emergency that along with the location of the person.
So okay. Yeah, so I think, it's an application, it's not new. So on the novelty scale, you'll be quite low, but it is something which has, from a software engineering perspective, it has a lot of moving parts. So yes, so I think it's something that you can definitely achieve. Or do you have an actual specific problem a specific thing that you wanted to ask?
Like how, this was my idea that like I want to share with you and I want to work on this thing. So like how possible is this? Like I found it like I can what should be my MVP like is what can I show you in the MVP like something like
I think in your MVP what you can do, and I've done this before and I actually almost killed a person for this. You can simply, what you can do is you can try to spend some time in developing a heart simulator or potentially hundreds of heart simulators, You create a hard simulator, and then you can create like instances of it, and somehow randomly generate anomalies within them. So, which is not difficult. I mean, like you can say that every tick that you do, you might have a 1% chance of having a heart attack, and so you have to trigger your system. And the only reason I'm saying that you could do this is so that when you actually present it from a scalability perspective, it looks more realistic. So
could we shift it to be AI focused, training it using simulated hearts for early signs of heart conditions?
Yeah, like,
yeah,
can I
potentially.
use like the sample images of ECG and then can I use the AI on that, like whether to recommend that this a symptom of heart attack or that's actual heart attack on that?
On the images.
So
like ECGs and
the biggest question comes is when you're using ECG data for AI. So you need to have a lot of data of people, ECG data of people having a heart attack.
yes.
So that's the anomaly you need to detect it, right? So the normal person which is ECG won't help you.
But there can be like on Google we can find images with having heart attack ECGs. Like sample
ECG is just the number, so up and down. Yeah, right.
So like there should be an algorithm to detect whether it's a heart attack or not.
Exactly. So that's a medical perspective again. So a doctor should tell you, so these numbers resemble a heart attack. So suppose imagine ECG, I don't know about the numbers, suppose just imagine ECG of 40 is close to heart attack and less than 20 is a heart attack. So
Yeah.
you need to fix this first thing
No.
and get the data.
But the one thing, and this will actually, if one of our students, his name is Elton, and he's doing his PhD specifically on this, he will tell you that AI, you can't actually predict. It's extremely hard to predict a heart attack. It will just happen. There's no real signs that anomalies that will say this guy's having a heart attack. So yes, of course, you have the usual signs of whatever, you get pain in your arms,
Also,
but that's already happening.
Yeah, even doctors couldn't actually recognize it because few people get second stroke within half an hour of bypass surgery. Even doctors couldn't know it just happens.
And some patients may be processing the
Like right after bypass surgery, you might.
You can get it. Yeah.
So there is no proper way to literally detect heart attack, but yeah, in case if you could find that equation where you can say that ECG or some parameters are leading to a heart attack, that's also a very good point.
Yeah, and if you want, I got one
But
paper.
you need a medical advisory of making that equation.
I can ask my father. He's basically not specialist.
You need the equation first.
Yeah, look, I would say you can do it, but focus on creating the simulator somehow. Don't try to turn it into a data science project. So this is a problem that I'm trying to face with this guy here, with Deakin, which is don't try to replicate real life too much. Focus on solving the problem. You don't have, for example, assume that the guy will have the heart attack. So try to simulate the data somehow. Once that happens, what is going to happen? Your job here is not to show me that you can do data science and that you can do anomaly detection or whatever you want to do. What you're trying to do here is to show me that you know how to engineer an application. So you can keep a lot of things within a black box, and eventually that black box will do something. Okay? I don't need to know how and why, but at some stage, you are going to trigger a heart attack, and I want to see what happens in the whole story, in the whole flow.
And
that's your job.
And the data science person will figure out how to actually prepare a model which is close to detecting. But he cannot design all this, how to get the data from sensors to mobile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, these things.
Yeah, so try to focus on what you can do and what you should do. Me, I'm not going to give you any marks for your data science part. So just to make it very clear, because I wouldn't even be able to assess you. So what's the point? What I need to know is that your application is well articulated, there is communication within components, there is testing done, there is, it's about the application. It's not about what's inside a black box. A black box which I wouldn't even know how to open doesn't make sense to me. All right, thank you so much for coming.
That's
and
right. Just put on with me, probably all the questions first.
No problem.
At some point.
Yes, and feel free to come over to really discuss your project.
I will do.
No worries. Thank you so much for coming. Alrighty, others.
So I got a question.
Okay, go for it.
The scope of my project. So for context, my project is essentially an AI that can control and manage traffic.
Okay, yes.
It would be integrated with sensors so it knows when cars on the road, and it could just make the lights go green or red. And the point is to hopefully reduce congestion so you don't get stuck in a traffic jam.
Yes.
So one solution based on the MVP is that I've got to do all these functions for it, but to actually make sure it works, I have to simulate traffic first.
Yes. So
I've got to design the model not only that simulates traffic and make cars from pathfinding.
So
the AI.
yes. So I think, as I mentioned many times to you before, you are making things too complicated. So what is the minimum thing that you need to do to make this work? So I think you can use the whiteboard, will be easier in this case, so people actually know that I do have lights. Okay, let's have a look at this from. Or should we just use this one?
Someone already using that stuff though?
Oh, we finished this one, right? Yeah. What was this? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so let's have a look at how we could do this. Let's shine some light. All right. So basically, try to make the smallest thing possible, right? Which is maybe you have 4, maybe you can even do you can just have 3, but let's say you have 4, right?
So, just a question before you start. Will you be here tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow's Good Friday.
Oh.
So, no, but feel free to send.
Break week?
Huh?
What about break week? Monday, Friday?
I think it's Monday. I think it's until Tuesday. It's actually holiday for the.
So now we have to interact with Mr. Blake.
Yes. Yes. So, okay. So, what is your? So, you basically want to create a controller which will basically be able to control this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy, right?
Is it like intersection traffic lights or something?
Yeah. Let's make it easier, because otherwise these ones will have dependencies, and it will be much more complicated.
Actually, each intersection has 4 set of traffic lights.
Yeah. I'm gonna get there. So let's make it linear, because otherwise they have cross dependencies and becomes much harder. So I guess what you can try to do is you can simulate each one of them, and if you want, you can simulate in a way that you have a source, and the sources could be like this, right? Because you have source and end, and then you have source and source and source and.
Wouldn't everybody be a source and an end then? Because it's going to cause on the lanes.
Well, you can also do it this way.
Source means
Yes, you're making it much more complicated. Yes, okay, yeah, fine. So I would say start with, I mean, probably was simpler to just have the things going in one direction first. Yeah, I would say that I would just start with the small one. Just start, see what happens when you get there. Okay, so what you will need to do is you will need to generate how much traffic goes from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, right? So we will have sim 1, sim 2, sim. And this is something that you can easily do in Node-RED. You don't even need to do it in 1, 2, 3, in Node-RED. Oh, yeah, you need to do it in Node-RED. And sim 4. Yeah, I'm actually republishing all of my things so that people can use this. So this one, you know, they will go down here, and you can just say, you know, how many cars will go every minute.
Just control how often they spawn, where they go.
Yeah.
So would I have to program pathfinding for these cars?
No, just you're making things too complicated. Make the simple.
Like how does if the traffic data is not actually accurate, you just like got the.
If you want, okay. First of all, if you want, there's all the data sets that you can download from the intersections from Melbourne.
Yeah, you have to find out how they're processed. Okay.
If you get those data sets, what they will actually say will just say how many cars go through. So you can potentially just do that. If you have the data of this intersection and this intersection and this intersection, you can sort of understand which way the traffic is flowing, but it's already once again becoming too complicated. Now, what is it that you're trying to do? So try to come up with the simplest thing possible to showcase that your project works. So what is it that you're trying to do? You're trying to optimize efficiency, the flow of cars, right? How many cars, and start with the simplest, which is how many cars flow from here to here. How long it takes for, there you go. This is our Joe car. How long does it take for this guy to go from here to here? This is his trip. So optimization is that. If it takes him 10 seconds, an optimized way would be 9 seconds. And that all depends on how much time he's going to be spending here, right? So I guess the first thing that you need to do is to try and come up with simulators for this, and you can make them all the same. You can just say, you know, do you even need the flow of traffic? Do you even need to know how many cars go through?
Not really, it's more about how many cars are currently there. So I guess if you knew how many cars go through there, you can make preparations. If you have a large network and, you know, try and avoid so many cars.
Yeah, so
that's all like way too much.
See, this is the thing. You can just, have you ever used Sumo? So you can actually just download Sumo and use this to do that.
Sumo?
So Sumo, it's an actual traffic simulator.
I did see there was I'm not sure if there was one, so I know there was an open source traffic simulator.
Sumo is open source.
Yeah, so I was going to ask about that, if we're allowed to use that? Or
you can.
It feels
so
cheap.
It's you can. The problem is not. So we go back. So your Sumo simulator will do something. Okay. At the end of the day, you need to. What problem are you trying to solve? This is the question. So in Sumo, you will need to provide some sort of data, which is how many cars will go through and everything. So we still have the same issue, right? We have an input and an output, and we have Sumo, which is a black box. Now, potentially what happens in Sumo, we don't have to worry about, but it's rather complex to do it, or at least it's not straightforward. Then what do you need to do here? You need to have a list. The way I would do it is that you need to have a web application which creates scenarios. So you will have your web application which you would say, plus, and you will get some information which will be the name of the scenario that you're creating and the data that you want to put in. So what do you need to make this work? Maybe you need the number of cars and the level of traffic. And so this information, these two parts, which could be, I don't know, 100 cars and the level of traffic high. And you can just call it, I don't know, whatever, new scenario. You just keep having all of these scenarios that you can relate to. So, yeah, of course.
You don't need to grab my permission.
Granted permission.
Thank you.
So, in our case, what you should be trying to do is to try and create an application that allows you to create these scenarios. And then you have this black box that somehow gives you the output of those scenarios. Now, if you have Sumo, great. If you have other things, you can just try to put it in. But what we're looking at right now is how do you do how do you demonstrate all the things that we have to do in this unit? So how do we demonstrate? We need to demonstrate testing. And so if we look at this, then we start building this with a middleware. And then here we have our black box, which is Sumo. And then we have our web server. Well, at the end of the day, you also want to, I mean, you need something which you need to demonstrate that. So even if you have an AI, with the AI, you need to provide it some sort of data somehow. Oh.
So web server is where the service runs.
I mean, you want to know what the AI is doing. That's the thing.
Yeah, like, for congestion. And testing purposes, so you know it's actually functioning properly.
How do you know it's functioning properly?
Yes. It's got pretty logs and stuff and give you graphs of what it does. So you know it's not putting traffic lights on and off in the fritz.
So, okay, so this is the thing. Even if you, all of those things, they will always have a way to interact with them. So the actual real models that you use, and I know I have a student who actually just graduated a PhD just in doing this part. That's why I tell you that all of the things are already there, all the data sets are already there. You can go and use Sumo if you want. This was actually her PhD. So her PhD was the optimization of traffic. So yes, you can do two things. Either you use AI and you get the optimization models, so you know exactly what things will come out, or you have a system which is doing things in real time. Now, if you want to do the thing in real time, you still need to control. Things and see them happening somehow. How are you going to control the simulation? So this is a question.
As if like to add more cars into the simulation or make it change lights or use the simulation?
Yeah. How would you control having more cars in the simulation? How are you testing if what you're doing is working?
To actually test it, you usually something like a hotspot graph. You have to measure where cars when this thing is and then try and measure the average stillness.
You can develop a user interface to let him or other guys to manually input all the parameters. And the parameters will pass to the web server passing to AI service. So AI service generate a result.
Yeah. So even if you do that, and I'm okay to do that. So
it sounds a lot for 9 days. Just do all this in 9 days. Sounds like way enough to learn so much.
You make
I know you're saying I'm overcomplicated. I don't know how to underweight you have
Okay,
to simulate
so
it
the
using
way,
now.
okay, so this is the way it's because you're doing the same as he was saying, oh, but I'm doing that AI thing, you don't need to do the AI part. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to the original thing. What is your problem? You're trying to optimize traffic, which translates into reduce traffic jams. Okay, so how are you going to demonstrate that to me? So make something which is demonstrable. So you're going to have, let me just check one thing. I think, give me 1 moment.
Something that's simulated some fashion. It's not like I wasn't aware of like machine learning or data analysis, just more like pattern recognition. It knows that there's like if there's like 10 cars and they're all smart cars,
If you want to use AI software, you have to include like enormous data.
You're trying to come up with a data science project.
No, not data science. I guarantee you, I hate data science.
Yeah. So, if you have 1, 2, 3, let's say you have just this part, okay? And I'm happy if you just build a very simple UI. So it has to be very simple. And to these guys, you connect 3 simulators. Okay? And so these are continuously sending cars from top to bottom. Just in one direction, nice and easy. Now, the moment you know that, and start with the simplest thing, and the simplest thing is have one car that goes from one side to the other. So this will change the traffic conditions. This at some stage, this one might be maybe creating a lot of traffic, this one less traffic, or whatever. So depending on the traffic, you will have how long the red light will last. So, and so these guys, so try to solve one problem first. What is the shortest time that this guy can go here? So tell me, trip time versus, and I can do it actually, you can do it as this. So trip time versus highest congestion.
Are you saying these are regular traffic lights?
You can control them. So
like if the AI you can say what is the shortest like what's the back here and so what's the longest like here?
Huh?
I'll be back.
Okay. So the AI, or your black box in this case, has to do 2 things. Has to get this guy from here to here in the shortest time possible by keeping this to a reasonable number. Because otherwise, what is the best solution? Red light, red light, red light, right?
Yeah, just go through, but it minimizes the amounts, that doesn't really work.
Yeah. So what you can do, and that's why I'm saying, you can just do with 2 lights, just to make it even simpler. Just create a function which, so if you do it in Node-RED, that's why I'm saying in Node-RED it becomes very easy.
Spell that?
Node-RED. You can do it very easily in Node-RED. Just have a function which is continuously keeping track of how many cars are here. And basically, then you just run the car and you go from one side to the other. So I don't need to see this as a UI, but what I want to see is just maybe I just want to see the numbers here. Yeah, like a counter. So, and potentially you can have three, you can, if you want to showcase it, just showcase three kind of strategies, which could be maybe high frequency versus low frequency. You know, what happens if you have the red lights last for 60 seconds versus having the lights.
This is more like actually processor perspective that does tasks. Like how do you know you have round robin that says, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You've got one that it tries to measure the average wait time of each call.
Yes.
Like you can do a lot of things. You can calculate the average wait time of each stream. But what I'm sort of like struggling with, how am I going to simulate this? Do I have to design this UI, or is that just going to?
No, this one. I mean, this UI here, I don't need it. Like, just show this one. Just show me the counters.
On like a node web server that you can access.
Yeah. This one you can even just make it on a.
Like this has got to be like a weird backend thing, doesn't it?
So. I mean the like the simulator. I mean you have to do backend scenario.
You know, just a scenario that one car will pass through 3 intersections, and the bottom 3 leftist 3 boxes means the highest congestion will be in this parse, this parse. And this trip time measures the time that
so it's like a nested mathematical formula. So it just says like it knows if you say type in like 20 cars here, 5 cars there, it'll like recalculate the times again, and then you can choose which based off
so you can
methods of solution.
So the simplest way is if you do strategy 1 and then you have strategy 2.
Yeah.
This will give you different numbers.
On the trip time for both like this as well as like one would be like average wait time for cars.
Potentially, if you have 3 lines, what you can do is you can do a configuration where you say, okay, if you don't want to do it by the Super Mario style, you can say, all right, just to see visually how things are happening. Just say, I want this red light to only last 6 seconds, kind of thing. Or you can try to make it more complex, and you can build a better simulator here where
you've got to have a human reaction time as well. So if there's 10 cars in the lane, it takes 2 seconds for a car to cross. Just because there's like each car is going to add like a point extra second or something anyway, so it gets more and more because one's going to react to the other.
Okay, look, I think the simplest thing that you can do is to try and have a play with Sumo, so you get a better understanding of how this whole process works. I think that will give you a better insight about this part. For the actual prototype, what I would suggest is try. You have to showcase that there is a process which is doing something, and that could be your black box. How it does it, I don't care. But you need to be able to showcase basically software engineering. So you have to showcase that process. So this is, at the end of the day, this is a continuation of software engineering. So what do you need to showcase? That you have your black box, which is doing something, that you have some sort of a middleware to control what is happening, what is going in and out, with potentially a database to keep track of those things, and some sort of a web interface to show how these are happening. So to give me something that I can potentially look at. So have a think about it, and so it is not due next week, it's due the week after. So in case...
next, it's 9 days, or 8 days technically now.
No, it's...
It usually 9.
It's
Next Friday.
No.
End of the Easter.
No, it's due the week.
I mentioned this in my thing. If you read it, my 200 paragraph thing.
Oh my god, I'm gonna kill that guy. It's due in week 5. He didn't account for Easter?
Probably not.
I have to check.
Check, because I'm sure the 737 is due in week 5.
It has the countdown on the bottom. Hour-wise, it's
Yeah,
in
but
9 days.
in my classes account for the Easter, so week 5 is week 5. Next week is not week 5.
Yeah, I see. I hate that two-factor.
I have to Node.js, it's so long,
honestly.
So create the web server, it shows off data, which it's got to read somewhere, which
I was saying, have a look at Sumo so you get a better understanding, and try to come up with something with Node-RED.
is that like Node.js in any way?
It's a graphical interface for doing these kind of things.
Yeah.
It will make your life much easier if you don't want to code in Node.js.
Well, see, I'm way complicated this now.
I can't pass through this one.
What?
Two-factor verification. I can't pass through.
Okay, let me have a look. You guys are.
They just released this new feature like in 1 week.
Oh, so it's for you. Oh, before it was just for stuff. Before it was just a stuff thing, and I hated it. I was like, oh, because RMIT got hacked. That's why.
What got hacked?
RMIT got hacked last week.
Ah. Is that university is known for its like cybersecurity stuff? A bit ironic.
Hey, you lied, so I can't say anything.
Alright, so very good.
Oh no, can you pass me my phone?
It does take time for.
No, it comes to me straight away. Because if you do it within 10 seconds, you have to redo it. So let me have a look. So software, because I might have made the same mistake on mine, but I'm pretty sure I did not. Manage the units.
I'm working on track this time. It's my capstone project.
Please don't make me say things. We are live.
Good luck.
Tasks. So my task. Yeah, so mine is the 16th of April because I accounted for week 5. And I think the task says, but once again, this is my units, not the, this is the.
So we like even if it is saying like the 9th of April, it's actually the 16th.
Let me check what it does actually say. Yeah, oh my God, yeah, because on the task it says week 5. So, but I think what
End of week 5.
So what Sasan might have done is that he did not account for Easter, and so he thought that next week is week 5. So if you guys can tell me, because I don't have access to the actual to the let me check if I can check 780, but I don't think so. Select units. Task list. Task 3. But when is it due? Yeah, I'll send him a reminder. Okay. See, it was good to talk about it today.
Oh my God, I'm not be able to do this in 9 days.
And you complained that there was a PDF, there was no PDF file. If you read the PDF file, it says week 5, which is not next week.
It's annoying to stare at everything with tons of column extends on for 2 pages.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. So you now have a little bit more time, okay?
So it says it's due in 9 days, the actual task.
So
the
project is about task. First, my
the program week, which is next week. So it's actually due on like the
parking cars
15th of April, not
both
the 9th.
sides.
Yes.
So we want to find.
It's not really extended. It was
find
parking
balance.
It was
Yeah.
so
I want to implement.
So it should be
system
technically
that is
extended.
independent of 2 components. The first one use photosensitive sensors to detect empty parking bay, and another component makes the users to identify where they are and the nearby empty parking spots. I know that there are already many solutions available, but those are for indoor parking my solution is for outside,
Yeah.
for roadside.
So, okay, do one thing first of all.
Yeah.
Somehow keep on simulating your house spaces
Yes.
in the same way.
I will use a map to do it. Like I will mark down the parking space on the map. I also in a list fashion.
Yeah.
So I will have a list of a map to show all the parking space, but it can be empty or occupied.
Yeah.
And the users can like open a website to check their current position and nearby empty spots.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, so yes, create a mobile app which will basically so have like an array which is keeps on changing the status of the car parks.
Yeah.
Maybe every 1 minute you regenerate the status
All the car parks.
so that and you can also try to do this with conditions, which, for example, you can say that in the morning, like between 9 and 12, let's say in the city, or maybe you can do Deakin if you want, you can do it better. I mean, if you want to try and do something smart, try to do it in a good way. So try to create a simulator which does what it's meant to do.
I just want to run down the numbers because they're pretty random.
Yes, don't do completely random. Completely random sounds stupid. It's random. So it doesn't hurt for you to create a simple function that takes into consideration the simulated time of the day and just think about the place. So I'm not asking you to do super complex. Just do like morning, afternoon, evening, and that's it. Because in the morning you will have your chance of, you can say that you have an 80% chance that the park will be occupied.
It's not like person-based. It's like we use sensors to detect.
Yes, I know you do that, but at this stage you still need to simulate whether or not.
Stimulate
your simulators, yes. So initially simulate where the car parks are. So if the car park is occupied or not.
Is it like so? Once we show the map to the user, it shows like in each parking place that you have 80% of.
So let's say that this is a car park, right? And each one of them has a sensor.
Yes.
Now, from an engineering point of view, right? This will have all of this data will come from these guys. So this is your middleware.
To get the data process.
Yeah. So now, all I'm asking you to do at the beginning of this is that you create a simulator which basically does exactly the same, which feeds you the data that comes from these guys.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to put the things on the floor? Yeah. So just simulate them and in the most realistic way. When we create a simulator, we need to make sure that the simulator acts as the real one. So what kind of thing is this going to give you? On or off, right? Yeah, you can just do that.
What about the percentage?
This is just when you create a simulator, try to make a simulator which is more realistic. What is the chance that there's going to be a free spot in the city in the morning? Probably very low. Yeah. So probably if you have 10 spots available in the city, there's a 90% chance that it's going to be occupied.
What I will show the user is like, if we have in the web page, you have a map here, and it has the location of the user. So the user can see that there are one car park, two car park, and the car park should show something like it's 10 available car parks now out of 20. And the data is based on the sensors.
Yeah. And it's exactly the same. So all I'm saying, so this one looks like an array, but realistically it's like this, right? So they're just combined one to the other. So when we simulate, it doesn't mean to do something different. It means to simply replace.
I see. So
this will be exactly the same. This one will be taken. This one will be taken. This one will be taken, or this one is free.
Yeah. So this one is pretty much. the moment, but it may change maybe
in the next minute.
Yeah, it may change.
Yeah.
But it's not about the percent, because I'm not going to show the percent.
Of course, you don't show the percentage.
All right.
When we build a simulator, to the user, the simulator doesn't exist. The user doesn't know the simulator, which is what I'm saying. What is this going to send? This is going to send the ID, and a true or false, right? So this one is going to do the same. It's going to send an ID and a true or false. Yeah. So to the user, from the middleware on, it's going to be exactly the same.
Okay. So it's just like replicating this scenario with an ID.
Yeah.
True and false.
Yeah. The actual problem I'm asking like this. So this part and this part, I'm designing them as a different component. That means it could be in one project and also can be in two projects but share the same database.
Yeah, of course. So this is, you're doing 737 or just 780?
I'm doing both.
Yeah. Then if you have the middleware.
What exactly is known meant by middleware, to be honest? Is it like, we're talking about software between front and back end?
Yes, like a control. It's something that
between the
manages it's like a third party. Or manages third party data. It's a communicator. Basically manages the communication between bits and pieces.
The middleware is somewhere between the database.
Now, if you do it in 737, then the most appropriate one to do would be to use MQTT. Oh, Marvin, is MQTT or MQTT? Message queue.
Yeah, MQTT.
So the simplest thing that you can do is run it with MQTT. So you have your middleware here, and as we say in 737, here you have the information about database, yeah. It doesn't matter what happens down here. So these are your different applications. Right? This could be F1. This could be F2.
Oh, you mean we have? I can will many application uses the same middleware.
Yeah, they're using the data, but they're using the data in different ways or displaying in different ways. Like the
middleware, like as a service.
Yeah, like the weather forecasting. Weather forecasting comes from one place. And then you have 20,000 different applications showcasing exactly the same data everywhere.
All right, so middleware as a service.
You can say parking spots as a service. All right? Yeah. If you do an MQTT, you get tick because it's a good technology to know, and I think it stays in the advanced technology thing.
Yeah, we'll probably use something like Firebase and use cloud function.
So all you have to do, it makes it easier because MQTT is basically the old concept of a bus. So people just publish to it. So what you do, all of these guys, they all publish to it. And anyone who is subscribed to it will pull the data automatically.
So MQTT is a data sharing platform or something?
It's a bus.
A bus.
It's a bus platform, yeah. It's basically, it's a publisher and subscriber mechanism. It's a PubSub. It's a publisher and subscriber. Yeah. So you can do it very easily as well in Node-RED if you want to do it. So this part you can easily do it in Node-RED, 100%. Also because you can do the MQTT in right out of the box.
They don't even have to have a database. I'm just wondering like how, you've got a database there in a sense, but why don't you even have a database? Like,
yeah, because the data is stored to the database and retrieved by other service.
Yeah.
We can't just the data come to.
Otherwise, we will only be able to use it in real time.
Like with traffic, that's what like I'm saying with malware. You want it in real time. It doesn't make sense if you store like.
So having it in real time, I mean, there is no reason to not store it as well or any other.
So we're not going to store a lot of data in the middleware. That's the reason.
Yeah. Potentially, you want to use the data for other things in the
Because
future.
in real time, we will have GBs of the data generate every second.
And also, what you may want to just have is maybe just, this could be holding a wide list of applications that can use
want, yes, you have a middleware, but then you might also have some sort of admin for this, right? So you may want to know how much data is coming through, who are the applications consuming it, and that's where your database could be helpful. All right, so better picture now. Well, I have actually developed the whole thing years ago.
Years ago.
Yes,
roadside.
Huh?
For roadside or just similar one?
Will it be on GitHub?
Unfortunately, yes. I don't know if it's on my GitHub. We presented it at the IL Worlds of 2018. We were working with Mercedes back then. So what I was trying to work on was a solution for people who have car park. We wanted to do car park Airbnb. So
shared car park.
Yeah. So you can make your car park available as a user. I pull up the application and I can see where there's a car park available. But we also actually mixed it. So we had both. You could have different views. You could have the public view, so you can see the actual available car parks currently available, which you can if you plug into the Melbourne City Council. There's an actual service to get the actual car parks, and I think it's real time. And if you can't find a public car park, then go and to the Airbnb car park sharing. So yeah, I have done that before.
Another question that in my MVP, can I just because I'm using a map, so can I mark some car parks in the map?
Yeah.
Because
make some icons. Make some icons.
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 Oh, icons. Okay.
I think for yours, just if you work with the map, you will find that this is actually quite easy to do.
Yeah, I see.
So that's actually why you also need the map. So that's also why you need the database, because this way you simply pull the data for of where the locations are, and then you build the locations on the map.
Yeah, that's what I
want. And it's super easy.
But
one thing that I recommend.
Is it enough for post unit?
If you show this part, show this whole part, yes.
All right.
So there are things that we can discuss later on, but as an MVP, yes. Remember what you need to do. The MVP has to demonstrate
the user story.
The user story. What are you trying to do? I am trying to help people find a car park. If I use, so can you show where the car park is? If the answer is yes, then it's fine. Okay. Ooh, okay, cool. I think we're gonna stop it here because otherwise I'm already. I think. Yes, I'm still gonna be here. Thank you. I think it's still going. I think it's been going forever.
I think people are watching it.